On June 7th, 2020, four Palmyra High School students walked onto the bandshell stage at the Chief Peyton I. Flournoy Sr. Memorial Park in Palmyra, New Jersey. Newly dedicated and renamed, as Chief Flournoy was in fact the first African American chief of police ever appointed in Burlington County and the state, and it is widely believed in the nation as well. This was a truly fitting setting for these four young ladies to have organized a Black Lives Matter rally. I was fortunate enough to attend this rally, as did enough residents and friends to fill the entire park and overflow peacefully into the street. As the crowd looked on for more than 2 hours, these four youth spoke to the gathered crowd, asked questions of them, and were joined on stage by local members of council, police, as well as our state senator, Troy Singleton. Some neighbors shared their own stories. Some were drawn to share poems, words of wisdom, caution, and experience, and some were drawn to sing. All of this positive energy for change, education, engagement, and support for George Floyd was organized and created by the four young individuals that I now have the honor to spend time with, while they share their own thoughts on how they were moved to organize this rally, what Black Lives Matter means to them, and where they feel we might all go from here. Thank you for joining me for this very special edition of Java with Jim. How did this come about? Is that you guys just like, oh, you know what, let me throw together some Photoshop and boom, you were on your way?
Well, we went to a Willingboro protest last week. It was wonderful. There are about I would say about 800 to 1,000 people. Like, it grew really quickly, and we all just saw each other, and Kaya was have to do something in Palmyra. And we were like, yes, we do. Mm-hmm. And then later Kaya saw Chloe, and then that just we got a group chat going. And then we started making logos, just spinning ideas off of each other. And we were like, this could actually work within a couple hours. And so, yeah.
I saw the girls at the protest, and we kind of ran up to each other and we're like, all right, so when are we making this happen in Palmyra? And then 5 days later it happened. And the logo, I kind of stole our school's subscription to Illustrator, and I made it.
You borrowed. That's
I
probably the word you were looking for. Yeah.
Thank you to Mr. Nevitt's class for graphic design. For that.
Wow. That's great. Well, I was blown away when I saw it. I think the first time I saw it was Maddie shared it. So Maddie shared it, and I thought, wow, that is awesome. Then I shared it, and I thought, how can I help with being a part or spreading a message, or just listening. So then this is what you guys did next, right?
Yeah.
So that was the morning of, and I'd love to find out what brought you to that place. So do each of you have any personal experiences that shape your feeling about Black Lives Matter?
I haven't personally had any interactions besides, walking into the store, being stared at or being watched. But really my answer is that Black Lives Matter has always been something that's been super important to me, because I am Black, and also having a Black father and having a Black brother and having nephews, that's something I was always aware of, especially with my dad when he was still alive. He used to travel a lot for his job, always being aware, on late nights, what if he got pulled over, So it was just something that was always important to me. And then doing this even showed more how much I really, spoke out about it, because it's one thing to just, have an opinion on it and not really do much. But then when you're speaking out on it and then you plan an event for it, it really shows. It honestly just showed a lot,
Well, I was just going to say, bouncing off of what Casey had said, I've never personally felt that, or like she said, store clerks or have people looking at you differently, just having to feel like they need to watch you more closely just because of the color of your skin. But I actually posted something on social media about all of this, and then some kid commented and started telling me that like white privilege didn't exist and everything. And I just kind of realized how many people needed to be educated on the subject further, because a lot of people really don't get it. And that was kind of my reason for the protest.
From what the girls have said, I believe that the race issue in America, sometimes we tell ourselves that we're not experiencing racism, and other people tell themselves that this isn't really a big issue. But when you look around, you see that race is in a lot of aspects of our daily lives. And everything what the girl said about a store clerk watching you closely, that's something that's obvious. But there's smaller things. There's things called microaggression, subtle nods to history of racism, things that most people aren't even conscious about, but that can come across as offensive. And looking at your list of questions, I just want to say they are all so excellent. And I'm so excited for this podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely have some great questions in there.
Yeah.
You've given us really great talking points.
Yeah, I was writing down.
Oh, you know what, it becomes an introspection for everyone, I guess, who's, willing to be honest about the conversation in general. And I'm as guilty as anyone who maybe hasn't probed as deeply as they could or should. And these educations or these conversations, I think, should happen more often. And maybe the lack of having them is partly what brings us, to this being so relevant now. So
these are very difficult conversations to have, but they need to be had, because you can't make change unless you're educated.
Mhm.
That plays a big role in today's society, in my opinion.
For sure. I think that education and communication, I don't know of two more important tenets, to come under, to understand or learn what there is to know, and always be open to learning more, and then sharing that, with others and having those conversations with others. But you guys are much too kind about my questions. I probably could have or should have made 50 more. If there's going to be a conversation about whiteness or blackness, that means there has to be an admission that there isn't this, I don't see color. And that's something that I don't know that I live with or think about deeply. But the question is, seeing color a right thing or a wrong thing? Since I'd have to see color to ask, what should white people be doing or doing better? Any thoughts about that?
I said 100% people need to see color, otherwise you can't recognize what's going on and how it's only happening to a certain group of people. However, how people view color is what needs to be altered. People need to understand that just because a person is a few shades darker, that doesn't make them any less of a person than a person without color. So it's kind of how people's views on people of color need to change, rather than them seeing it.
I agree. I think that just because you're a few shades lighter doesn't really mean that your life isn't worth as much. We all have the same insides. We all have hearts. We all have lungs. We all have two eyes. It's just the color of our skin that defines us. And that doesn't make us any less of a person. That just makes us different. And to see that tear apart is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not fair. I think people shouldn't be treated differently. Like, I have just as much of a chance to get something as you do. So why should you look at me differently or treat me differently because of a different skin color? That's like me doing the same to you. You wouldn't like it. And I feel like a lot of people don't think about that. Like, if I was to treat you a certain way, you wouldn't like how you're being treated. But why don't you think the same way? Why do you think it's okay? Why do you feel comfortable enough to treat me that way with no remorse? I
have a question for the girls. Earlier you said that you haven't really felt any specific way of being treated because of the color of your skin. But then hearing you talk about color and how much of a critical factor it is in our identities, in how people see us, I really feel that we all have experienced being viewed in certain ways because of what we look like, especially as young boys and girls. I'm sure that you've been faced with the image of, say, when you just want to state an opinion on something, rather than being viewed as a leader, you're viewed as an overpowering, aggressive black woman. Or maybe you've heard someone say, oh, well, you're pretty for a black woman. And things like that you don't view as overwhelming. They called me the N-word, which we all probably have heard as well. But those small things, those are the subtle racisms that are going to be fixed by conversations like this. So I just wanted to say that on behalf of all of us. I mean, I think it's true for all of us.
I definitely agree. I think that's happened so much that it's become our normal. You know, just like when I was little, my mom would tell me, like, going into stores, make sure you don't do this, make sure you don't do that, because they'll watch you. That's become our normal. So we don't really say, like, you know, this is a big part of racism, because for us, it's just like, this is our way of us living. Exactly. So I definitely think from that, I have experienced some things that have been racist, but I never really thought of it that way, because it's just like, well, I live like this every day. I've been living like this for 15 years. So why do I wouldn't really think of it as anything else.
Yeah, big problem too is people normalize it. They think that just because we're at a young age, that it's something that we should continue with. Like, no, we're trying to change this. We're trying to change the fact that we have to go into a store and think twice about something we do that a white person won't have to think twice about.
And that, like, I feel like, you know, when I go back to school from, like, spring break, or, like, if my friends go to, like, the Bahamas on winter break, they come back, like, Caucasian, and they look at me and they're like, look, I'm the same color as you. I'm like, how has that become something that you're so comfortable with saying? Like, and they don't say it jokingly. They really think that it's okay. And I'm just like, why is that okay? Like, what have you been taught at home to make you think that this is okay to say to somebody? Because I wouldn't like it if I said it to you. And the color of our skin is something that we take serious. It's something that we take pride in. Everyone who is African American should take pride in the color of their skin. So in my opinion, for me to go to school and for girls to say that to me is very disrespectful, because you don't know what it's like to be black, you know? For you to mock that color by saying, I'm the same shade as you, it's just not right, in my opinion.
Exactly.
I agree with everything that these girls have said, because I know I felt that way at one point in time, and I still feel that way.
Yeah,
I think what, I don't know if it was Lucia or Chloe, but what you said was so important, that sometimes those little things, those experiences, we forget about them because they have become so normalized. And during conversations like this, it's almost hard to remember the specifics because things are painful and we just assume that that's what happens and we forget about it. So when we talk about an uncomfortable time in a store, it's hard to remember the specifics, but they are so true. And I was thinking back as you were talking, and there was a time when I was going into a dressing room. I was prom dress shopping with a white friend of mine. It was just us. This was when we were in high school. And we walked back to the dressing room. And the instructor, she said, it was a white woman. And she said, well, it's your protocol that I have to go through your things before you go into the dressing room. And I said, okay. And I let her go through my things because I had a dress I was going to try on. And then I walked back to the dressing room and I looked, and my friend was following me. And seeing that the only person that this clerk had questioned to go through their things was me. And my white friend didn't even get a sideways look. That's the kind of thing that we forget about, but are so real, and we shouldn't have to go through at all. And so when we say, is it good to be colorblind, to not see color? I think it's foolish to say that we don't. that store clerk obviously saw a difference between my friend and I. And our color is, like Chloe said, so much of who we are, so we can't ignore it, and it's vital to the conversation. So that's just
Yeah, like we're proud of it too. Like, yeah.
And I think because of everything that's going on, it makes it so hard for young girls to love their skin. Young African girls, they don't think they're pretty. I saw a video a couple weeks ago of a young Black girl getting her hair done and she said, I'm up. And she couldn't stop crying. She had to be about 6 years old. And it broke my heart because why do you feel that way? Well, what do you see on the news? Riots, protesting, just because of the color of our skin. And it's heartbreaking because I never had to go through that. But I'm grateful enough that my parents surrounded me and told me every single day, you're beautiful. Don't let anybody tell you any different. But they had to keep telling me because if they didn't, I would go to school and someone would tell me that I'm ugly because of the color of my skin, or you have beautiful hair for a Black girl. These curls are beautiful. Kaya's curls, Chloe's curls, Casey's curls are beautiful. Not for a Black girl, but for a girl in general. And I don't think that race should define any of that. So.
Especially as girls, there's that standard of beauty, and that is so interwoven with color. I know as a little girl walking through stores and wanting to find dolls that looked like me, there would always be the Barbies, and it was so hard to find a little tiny doll that looked like a little tiny Kaya. And I know that a lot of Black girls don't see themselves in magazines, and it hasn't been until recently when it's interesting to have something different.
I don't know. I knew I was looking very forward to talking to you guys, and it's such an honor. It's the kinds of conversations that I know I don't have often, and I still so love that you're sitting here with me, sharing your thoughts. They are tremendous. How are you guys dealing with all the stay at home and COVID and school and?
I don't know. It's so weird. I just turned in my last English assignment, my last assignment period for my junior year online. And it was so weird. I know it's even weirder for seniors, but it's just weird in general. Like I never thought I'd be sitting at home clicking turn in. It's just crazy. I'd rather be in the classroom, but I understand why we're not.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of have mixed feelings about it. Like, I like it because I kind of get to do things at my own pace, but I don't like the fact that sometimes when I need to, like, talk to a teacher face to face, because sometimes with, like, certain assignments, if I'll ask a teacher a question, by their facial expressions, I kind of get what they really want out of me without them kind of saying it. But, like, I want to do it again. I definitely want to do it again. I only do it, like, online school if I had to, but it wasn't like terrible.
What do you want to do again?
I want to do online school again. I would do I want to do that because I didn't really like it as much. Like I would only do it if I had to.
Oh, I
like
got
in
you.
a situation like this.
Yeah, it's certainly it seems to me that it's certainly more challenging to do it that way, and you don't have that interpersonal interaction that you do, of course, when you're in person. But that versus having no access to the same material during that same time. Yeah, that's a tough option. Do you feel that your voices have been heard before now? And do you think that your voices will encourage other young people to get involved? And when you become of age to vote or to be engaged in your town process, do you think your rally will encourage folks to get more involved?
I hope so. I definitely, for when you asked, Oh, sorry. There's noise outside. When you asked if we thought that we had been heard before this, I definitely think that people have heard us, but they haven't listened to us as much. I think a lot of people have said, oh, well, you're a child. So I think a lot of people have played the child part into it. But I hope that people have impacted from what we did on Sunday, not just because it took so much time and planning, but because we care, because we want to change. Like we don't want to grow up in this like and feel differently. We don't want our kids or anybody that we know to go through this, like future generations. We want to be the generation that changes things, from young ages to adults even. So I really do hope that our voices were heard and that people are changing their ways, because if not, this is going to be a repeating cycle. It's going to be a cycle all over again, and then our marching and our talking would have been for nothing once again. So
I really like what Casey said. Also, to kind of keep going with that, like, have we been heard before? I think Sunday was a really great day for all of us, and even a lot of people in the community. Was thinking about the event, and my favorite part was the open mic. It was a little unpredictable, so you didn't know what people were going to say, but I thought it was really neat to be able to hear experiences from the mouths of 15-year-olds to women and men who have been Black and lived in this community since the 50s. And hearing that although we think we have had these experiences, they've faced decades of hardships before us. And I talked briefly at the protest, and a lot of people have asked me about it since, but about my voice being heard all through Black Lives Matter. I painted a mural in the school, and a lot of people have been asking me about that. And that was a way that I had tried to express my voice several years ago. And now having it all culminate to this point where I get to openly talk about it, those words that I painted a long time ago.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, the being heard before now thing. My mom's white and my dad's Black, and my dad wasn't really around as much, so I was never fully exposed to that side, like my Black side of my family. But being at the protest and being able to share, like, my thoughts and my views and my feelings with the crowd, that was, like, the best feeling I think I've ever had. And being able to hear all their stories, too, just like Kaya said, especially the ones from years and years ago, because these people have been living through this, and they've seen the cycle of protests and rise. They've seen it repeat itself over and over again. So just to hear how angry they were and how all their feelings were about this, that it's still continuing to happen, it just makes you feel like it's like heartbreaking, but it's like a good feeling at the same time, because you know, like, you want to make change, and it just gives you that feeling that, you know, you really want to do something.
I feel like now that we have social media, you can post a lot of things and people can see like what you're talking about, but not everybody's listening. And for us to do the protest, I felt like everybody was listening. We were in the middle of town. There wasn't a choice. Like, you came out of Wawa, you saw us. You're driving down to go to ShopRite, you saw us. You know, you're going to FFM to get some gas, you saw us. Like, you couldn't not see us. The train was going by. Like, you were forced to look and see what we were doing. And I think the beauty of that was knowing that you weren't alone. Like, having these other three ladies standing up on the stage with me made me know, like, I was not alone, and like, I have people to talk to, people to help me get through this. And I definitely feel like Sunday our voices were heard, and there's so much more that we can do, you know.
Can I throw this up? This is my favorite. It just to me it just symbolizes the four of your energies just standing in front of everybody, with them so focused on you, listening to your every word. That's that.
Yes, great picture.
Wow.
Awesome.
I, I, I love it. There were those people they were there for you, listening to you in awe of what you had done. And I think they were, I guess I could speak for me, ready to know and understand what you ladies feel we should be doing now and focused on doing next. The fact that there were so many people there, from town council, the mayor, the chief of police. There were as you said, there were the neighbors that came out to share their thoughts. In fact, I think, weren't there folks who weren't from town either? They had just heard about the effort. The gentleman from Willingboro who suggested, oh, that's right. So had you met him from your going to the Willingboro rally?
He's actually our godbrother, my sister and I's godbrother. So I had talked to him because when we were planning out different things, we had given out different jobs, and I was in charge of talking to people. So I reached out to him and asked him if he could come out and help, because his voice was very vocal at the protest, and he did an amazing job is basically all I can say. So we wanted him there, and I called him up and I talked to him and we figured things out, and he actually had another event to go to right after. So it was amazing that he could fit us in. Like, he made it a priority, and he talked and he did what he did. It was amazing.
You guys do know that our state senator was there to support you guys too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That was a whole process to get him there. I was emailing his secretary for 4 days before the event, and because he was talking at a lot of local protests, and when I heard he went to Morristown, we were all like, oh, well, let's see if he'll come to Palmyra. So that was fully the work of us girls, and we got him to come. So we're very proud of that.
Well,
that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
As you should be. I had seen some clips of the rally in Morristown, and he says something, I don't know, to me compelling when he's somewhere speaking, and he said, "We all get 24 hours in a day. Let's make them count." I was like, "Wow, you guys are making them count for sure." What did you guys want to accomplish with the rally?
I think there's important conversations that need to be had. I'm sorry if I'm really awkward. This is not my format, and I'm not doing very good today.
Well, you're wrong. It's the first time you're wrong. You're doing great. You're doing tremendous.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm nervous. I think the virtual stuff freaks me out. But anyway, what we wanted for the protest was just to start conversations. By no means was that protest the end. I posted something yesterday saying, thank you so much for coming, but your commitment to this movement is going to be so much more than that your dedication can't just stop with posting a few things on social media, with coming to a protest or two. If we want to see real change, we're going to have to not just stop with a wave of a movement. This wave has to keep going. We have to push for voting, because real change comes through our legislation, and changes that are going to happen on the individual level are going to come through those personal conversations where people listen to each other, just share experiences, and really try and understand different perspectives. So I'm really proud of us. I think we accomplished a lot of that. We gave out voting registration forms so that the younger generation knows to come out and vote. And also, we put some uncomfortable things out there, and I know for all of us, we've had a lot of feedback, and a lot of people want to talk, and that's what we wanted to see, and we are seeing that.
Piggybacking off of what Kai said, I definitely, I think out of all of our goals, and my goal from this protest was to make people uncomfortable. I already had a mindset of, this is to raise awareness. But if I can just make one person uncomfortable enough to change their ways, that's all that matters. You know, I would love to say, let's make 100 people change their mindset. But if I just change, I mean, if we just change one person's mindset by making them so uncomfortable, they're like, I need to do something. Like, I need to stop. Like, I need to figure something out, because it's not easy. It's not easy to change your mindset, especially for so long. This is not like teaching a child. Like, you're an adult. You're a teenager. It's going to be hard to change your mindset, but you can do it. And once you do that, things just start to get better, and changes start to happen. So I definitely think that was one thing that we wanted to accomplish, like, was making people uncomfortable and making them realize, like, hey, like, maybe this isn't the right thing I should be doing. And it's okay to accept that, and recognizing that you need to make a change. It's not like a foreign thing that you're not going to get made fun of at all if you just decide, you know, like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should change the way I see people. Maybe that person isn't that bad, you know? So definitely I think we did it to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think also, like, to help people understand what's going on and how Black people have felt during all of this and how they felt every day before it got media attention, like before everyone even started all these protests and everything. This has been every day. It hasn't just started when it started getting media coverage. And also, like, to unify the community, because, you know, we wanted to make sure everyone had the same mindset about how we feel and everything. And I also wanted to say how I don't like when people say, like, they're only one person, they can't change anything, because a lot of this is going to be, like, small, hard-fought battles to get to, like, the real permanent changes in the country. So I think, just like we probably in the beginning thought, like, oh, what are we going to do? You know, we're just, like, 4 teenagers. But then we saw how we could unify the community in such a big way, and it was very important for that.
I agree. I think that when you're teenagers, like kids, they listen to you more because they're like, wow, like, this is really impacting young children and it shouldn't be that way. So they listen, they come out. I knew that on Sunday, I made sure that I walked in the crowd. I went back behind and I walked and I went to see, like, who was there. And there's so many different people from so many different towns. I hugged some girl. I didn't even know who she was. I was like, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from, but thank you for coming. Like, she brought a bunch of family members with her, and they weren't even from Palmyra, Riverton, or Beverly. So I'm just, like, grateful that the word was spread. Like, we were able to accomplish these goals because I didn't even know what to say. I was just so thankful. And to be able to accomplish that and be sitting here with you is awesome.
You mentioned permanent change. Do you guys think you have thoughts about what changes could or should occur that would either be the change you think you'd like to see, or a step in the correction, or a step in the direction you'd like to see?
Oh, okay. I believe that education is close to everything. What we're doing right now is a form of education, just listening and hearing each other's experiences, but also education in the classroom. I believe that what our schools will do will have a large impact on the minds of the up and coming generation. Things that kids learn in school are truly transformative. Some of the biggest mental growth happens in our schools. So everything from our history classes in high school to the books that our elementary school teachers are reading is going to make a lot of a difference if we can get conversations going early. And also another part of real change is just for the nation to stop and admit that we do have a problem. This isn't something we can brush under the rug one more time. And one of the biggest things, I don't know if you have a question on this later, but to admit that is so real and we need to address is white privilege. And do you want me to save that for later?
No, I want you to share your thoughts.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, like Chloe Edwards, I also have a white mom and a Black dad. And growing up in this biracial household, I have seen their lives parallel and the vastly different experiences that both of my parents have had, and seeing them, I know that the only difference is the color of their skin. And white privilege can be small things. It's things that until you recognize, you might not notice. Things like my mom doesn't hesitate to return something to a store without a receipt. She walks up to the counter and no one ever looks at her sideways. My dad, on the other hand, a black man who fits every description of the sketchy suspect, he could never get away with that. My mom wouldn't think twice about using a credit card with someone else's name on it. My dad can't. It's small little things like that that benefit you in your daily life that a lot of Black people can't do. So white privilege is really real, and those are just two that came off the top of my head, and I'm sure the other girls can think of examples in their households or things they've seen, but it is real, and it is something we should discuss and not pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I would want to saying about how real change is also going to happen in education too, because we need to see some serious reforms in what they teach. Because you can't blame some kids our age for being uneducated, because what they're taught in schools is only like a fraction of the history, like all this history that we have. So they're not even taught some things that like we would be educated on because we're into it, or we researched it, or we read things about it. Even like there was controversy over reading To Kill a Mockingbird. Like there shouldn't be, because these are conversations that people need to have. Like they need to understand that there was racism and it did happen, and history continues to repeat itself, and that's why we want real change now. And again, what she was saying about white privilege, it's kind of a hard, difficult topic to talk about, because it's hard to change people's minds. Like people will really think that you guys are the same. But it's like, especially because I was talking to my cousin Damien the other day, and he was talking about how anytime a cop is following him or anything, he's constantly looking in like his rearview mirror to just see if they're gonna put their sirens on for no reason, or just to think like, he just thinks like, maybe I could be the next one, you know, maybe I could just be the next hashtag, and it's a terrible feeling. And that's what white privilege in itself. Like I was talking to some like of my white friends too, and they were saying, yeah, I don't think twice about it, you know. It's just like small things like that.
I think that I had a difficult conversation with my mom a little over like a week ago before Sunday. And she was telling me, like, you know, when you get your license, it's not a matter of if you'll get pulled over, it's when, because it's going to happen. Because I am African American, it will happen. It might not happen as much because I'm not a male, but it will happen. And she just told me, like, she walked me through all the steps. Put your hands on the wheel. Be very specific about what you're going to do, because if you reach in your glove compartment to get your license, they might think you're going to get a gun, and then I'm a hashtag, like I'm no longer there. And I would never want my family to go through that. And so I think real change happens by telling difficult stories and having these difficult conversations that no one else really has anymore. And people don't know what we go through. And I feel like if they did, they would understand and educate themselves on the matter.
That's an example of privilege in itself. How many white families, white mothers have to have those conversations with their sons and even daughters? Having my white mom have to be worried so much because she has a Black son. And I was little when my brother first started driving, but watching her sit down with him so serious and say, here's what you have to do when you interact with the police. The fact that we have to have those conversations, that she had to tell him about keeping his hands visible, even though he hasn't done anything. And things like that, those are scary, sometimes traumatic things to think about. The fact that Black families have to go through that our Black males and women even have to have those thoughts isn't right. And that white families can get in the car and drive stress-free and send their boys out on the road. That is privilege.
Yeah, and I was too about how sorry. about how you said it's not even just like being pulled over too. Like I was talking about this when I spoke on Sunday about how Black people shouldn't need to follow a certain set of rules even just to step out of the house. Like especially like leaving at night. I've heard stories about how people's like, I don't have a brother or anything, but like I've heard stories about how parents need to tell their sons like, don't put your hood up, don't wear all black at night, don't walk or run too quickly because you know they might think you've done something wrong. And like be careful about even just defending yourself because no matter what, like you'll always be seen as the aggressor. And it's like scary like that even not just driving, like even just walking around and like being suggested just because you're in like the wrong area or something. Like just
Exactly.
Definitely. I definitely agree with everything that you guys have said. And I think it's also about people being open-minded. I think a lot of white people are closed-minded. Closed-minded is actually what I would say. Because it's like if you face what's going on, you don't want to feel bad about it. And then that's when everything else comes into play. And I think, again, about white privilege, that is very real. And it's just even again, what you guys were saying about the little things, talking about that, they don't have to worry about things, especially going into bigger issues like when you're an adult. You don't have to worry about working 10 times as hard for a position. Like that's something that we have to work on a daily. Like, how can I do this better? Even if you're more qualified than that person, we still as Black people have to work 10 times harder because it's like, you know, they're probably not even going to look at me. They'll probably look at my resume and then bring me in and see me and they're like, okay, like, whatever. But you have to show them, like, we have to work hard. We have to show them that we're worthy. And that's something I don't think that's fair at all. I don't think that we should have to spend more hours and more days. And instead of going out and doing this, we have to stay inside and we have to work and we have to study and we have to do this just to get a fair chance, you know, just to be able to compete with a white person. It's absolutely, I wouldn't say disgusting, but it's not really right word for me to describe it. It's just more so bothersome that we have to go through that every day just to, you know, get the same chance as somebody else. And you don't, and furthermore, that person doesn't even know me. Like they don't know anything about me. So it's not like you could say, you've talked to me, you've had multiple conversations with me, you see that I'm irresponsible, you see that I'm not set for the job, I have a potty mouth, I go off and I do things, but you don't know me, so you don't know anything about me. You're just judging me based off what I look like, and you're like, well, you know, I'll just move her on to the next job. Hopefully she gets it. She's not getting one here though, you know. Like,
I know that personally. Well, I'm sure this is true for Casey because like we're sisters and we go through the same teachings with our parents. But my mom and dad would tell me all the time, like, you cannot get away with not doing an assignment and then asking for more time. You just can't. You have to turn everything in on time. And I know personally, I had an experience. It was my sophomore year and we were doing scheduling, and the guidance counselor that I had at the time, she no longer works at the school, but I had gone up to her and I wanted to change some things on my schedule. I was like, yes, I would like to take honors chemistry, honors geometry, and an AP course for that year. And I asked her if I could take an AP course for my junior year. And she looked at me and said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure. I'm very sure I want to take this AP course." And she proceeded to make me explain why I thought that I was qualified for the course. I said, well, I love history. I'm a straight A student. I just want to take this AP course. And sadly, I had to drop out of that AP course this year because of everything that happened with my family. But right after I left, I saw my other friend, Ella. She walked up. She's Caucasian. And she said, "Can I take AP Euro?" Handed her the slip without a problem. And I was just like, why do I not look qualified? I am qualified. You can look at my name, my grades, but when you see me, I'm not qualified. And it was just mind-boggling to me because I know I'm smart. I know that I'm well-rounded. I know that I'm a good student. And for her to do that was kind of like, she cut at me. And I was like, that's crazy. And that was kind of like my first interaction with like actual racism, like face to face. And I told my mom, and she was like, we have to say something, we have to do something. And I was like, no, Mom, like, there's nothing we can do about it. Like, it is what it is. It's going to happen. And it's how you deal with it that defines you as a person. So,
one of my biggest questions that I've always had for for teachers or anybody that works with children, why do you feel comfortable doing that? Why do you go in a profession that deals with children of different ethnicities and skin colors just to be just to not give them a fair shot? Like, what's the point? Like, why do you feel comfortable every day waking up, going to work, just to say no to one kid because of their skin color? But then you want to go and tell them, oh, come and talk to me when you need help. Oh, I know that this is going on. Like, I had a lot of teachers that, especially, well, this is really the only experience I can pull off, especially once my father passed away, that were like, you can talk to me, you can do this, you can do that. But when I needed them for something else, it was kind of on their time schedule, when they wanted to do it, how they wanted to do it. It wasn't really, when I needed it. It wasn't to try to help me. It was when they felt like it, when they wanted to do it. And I just why would you be in a profession if you're not going to be fair to all? I don't think that's right, personally.
Yeah, going off what they said about schools and everything too. It's like, just like what Chloe said, I've been a straight A student my whole life. Like, it's not a surprise, but even just the way they react when you answer a question correctly in class, as if they're surprised that, I don't know, they're surprised a black girl or a black guy could answer a question that in depth, or have an answer that thought provoking, it shouldn't make a difference.
I totally agree with what Chloe is saying. I've had substitute teachers in school come in, and my regular teachers know me. They, like all the rest of the girls, were straight A kids, top of the class students. And then they'll be teaching a lesson, and I'll be the one raising my hand the whole time, giving the textbook definitions and answers. And that look of surprise isn't something that Chloe or any of these girls are imagining. That is real. We see that even now that when I went through my whole college process this year, I remember walking into my orthodontist's office, and one of the nurses, I don't know what you call people, dentists? I don't know. But she said, oh, what schools are you looking to apply to? And I rattled them off a lot of big Ivy League, big name schools. And she said, oh, those are good schools, and just that doubt. And she could have said that to a white kid, but hearing these experiences that Chloe has had, other Chloe has had, Casey has had, it adds up, and it shows that it's not just because they were big schools. It's because looking at me, I may not look like your typical fit for an institution like that. And it's not founded or right.
I was looking forward to talking with you guys. Class change. But what you share is absolutely moving and important, and your thoughts about this being a step towards a process of engagement. I could not agree more. And I look forward to what you guys have in store next. And I'm sure that includes the continued engagement in conversation with those you're speaking with now, and then others who are, along your path. I think you guys are heroes. I can't imagine what you thought as you stood right here. Oh, wrong direction, right here.
Yeah.
To look out into that sea of people and know that that was your doing. That was an empty plot of grass 1 hour before that, and you made all that happen. And I'd like to think it's the beginning, or at least the continuation, because you're right. This didn't start. This conversation isn't one that started right now, but you've moved it into people's consciousness, and that's tremendous. It's like I said, I'm such a fan. I think you guys are heroes. I know that I had a neighbor when I shared with them that I was going to have the opportunity to talk with you guys. They said, please tell them how much what they did meant to me and many of the people of Riverton to get to attend their powerful protest. That was her thought. I think that folks are inspired and touched and impacted by what you've done. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your thoughts. I hope we get a chance to maybe either do this again or do it on a bigger platform, or that ability to engage is paramount. You know, that's the goal, and you guys are doing it like superstars. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to be keeping track of you guys.
Yes, stay tuned. We're going to keep this going. There's
Perfect.
more.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much. Have great days. Reach out if you guys have thoughts, questions. Hey, Jim, can you? You know, love to hear it. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.